In this video, I'm going to teach you how to make a clay dragon. First, you're going to take your balloon and you're going to put it on one side of the clay and roll it over to make sure that it will fit. Then you're going to take your stylus and you're going to do your scoring on one side. Scoring is just making a little X-shaped mark. Be sure not to pop your balloon as you're doing this. Then make sure the other side will fit and score the other side. Scoring will ensure that your clay will hold together. Take your slip and paint it on the scoring side of both parts of your clay. Then you're going to fold it over very carefully and smooth it with your finger. This step will take a bit of time to make sure that your clay is smoothed together very nicely. You can use your tool very gently to go over the scored and slipped part of your clay to make it stick, but make sure to use your finger afterwards to make it nice and smooth. Then we need to cover up the rest of the balloon by gently folding over the clay and pinching off the excess. We don't want a lot there, we just want to cover up the balloon. This part will take a while as you smooth out both sides and pinch off the excess. Your goal is to make a potato shape for the body of your dragon. Keep smoothing with your fingers and be very patient. The more smooth your dragon body is, the better it will come out in the end. If you need to pinch off excess as you go, feel free to do so. You can use your fingers or your tool to smooth out the excess. If any cracking occurs as you're smoothing, just take your finger and smooth out the crack. You can also use a little bit of slip and your sponge if needed. Be sure not to make the potato shape too wet with your sponge or slip because it will weaken your clay project. The next step is the head. You'll be given a cube of clay and you're going to tap it so one side is more narrow than the other. Keep tapping until you have a wedge shape. Then you're going to take your clay tool and cut the center, being careful not to go all the way through your cube. This is going to serve as the mouth of your dragon. You're going to carefully open up the mouth, pulling the nose out and the bottom jaw out. Keep working the clay until you have the shape that you want. If your hands become too dry as you're working with the clay, put a little bit of slip on them and then continue to form your head. At this point, I'm pulling out some horns from the top. Now that my horns are created, I will take my stylus. I'm smoothing out a place for the nostrils, and then I'm gently poking holes to make the nostrils. If you lift up your stylus as you're poking your hole, it creates more of a dragon-shaped nostril. I then smooth out the nose of the dragon to make sure I don't have any cracks left. The next part is making the holes for the eyes. For this part, I use the back of the stylus. Very carefully place it in so it doesn't go through the back of the head. Now I have the nose and the eyes complete. The next part is the tongue. I'm going to score the inside and slip the inside so it acts as a glue. I created a little tongue shape out of leftover clay. I'm going to gently put it inside and smooth it in. Make sure it's secure so this part does not break off. Be careful with your horns because they're a very delicate part. So there's the body shape and the head ready to go. Next will be the legs. You're going to get a coil of clay. Cut it in half. Put the two halves together and cut them in half one more time. This ensures that your legs are going to be pretty much the same height. I'm tapping the top and the bottom just to make sure that they will be flat and stable for the dragon. During this time, I'm also making sure that they are the same height. Now I'm going to make the little dragon claws. Very gently, I'm cutting just a little bit of the bottom of the foot, and then I'm spreading it apart. You can use your tool or your fingers. Make sure not to make the little toes too thin or they will definitely break off as you're working. Continue this step with the other legs. Notice how I'm organizing the dragon body so that I have the body shape, the head, and then the legs nice and organized for when we assemble the dragon. The next part is the tail. You'll get a wider but shorter piece of clay for the tail. I'm rolling just one end so that it starts off thick and it's going to taper down into a thin tail. I'm rolling it and pulling it gently to form the tail. Try not to get the end of the tail too thin or else it will break off in the kiln. Keep working the clay until you have the shape that you would like, and set it down next to the rest of your dragon pieces. So we have our body shape, we have our legs, and we're going to assemble those first. Score the tops of your dragon legs. Assemble them so that they're the proper distance to hold up your dragon. Give it a little test to make sure that the dragon will be able to stand. Then you're going to gently score the bottom of your dragon body. Be careful not to poke through the clay so that it would pop the balloon. After you have scored your dragon body and the legs, you're going to use your slip to glue the two parts together. Then one at a time, you'll take the legs and secure them. After each leg is secure, you're going to very gently take your finger and smooth all the way around the legs to make sure that they stay. The video doesn't really show this part, but it's very important to secure the legs on or else your dragon will collapse. Next is the tail. I'm tapping it so it tapers a little bit more, and I'm also bending it to give it more of a shape. Test your tail, make sure that you like where it's placed. And then you're going to repeat that same process with scoring both parts that you're going to be attaching, the tail, and you're going to also score where the tail will go on your dragon. Remember to be careful not to poke through to the balloon. Of course, then next, your step is to add your slip. Make sure you use enough so that it will stick really well. Once you know that your tail is secure, use your finger to blend it into the body so that it will stay. It will pop right off if you don't blend it together. You can gently take your tool to fuse the two pieces together. If you need to pick up your dragon, be very careful because the legs are still delicate and may pop off if we're not really careful. The next part would be attaching the head. If you need to form parts of your dragon head and make it exactly what you want it to be, this is a perfect time to do this before it is attached to your dragon body. I gave mine a little bit more of a nostril look. Now I'm going to see where I would like the head to be placed. And I'm going to repeat those same steps to glue them together. First, scoring without popping your balloon, both sides, and then using the slip to fuse it together. You can use your finger and your clay tool to fuse the head to the body. Remember, use a gentle touch because the little dragon could lose a leg or part of a tail if we're not careful. So here we have the dragon assembled. Now we need to add some details to our dragon. Here's an example of a dragon with two heads. So we're going to take another slab of clay and create the spikes. I'm cutting into the clay in a zigzag pattern. Notice how I'm not cutting all the way through to the edge. I'm cutting a straight line, making sure not to touch the bottom parts of the zigzag, so I actually have two zigzags now that I can attach. I'm carefully taking them apart. So I can attach them to my dragon. You're going to repeat those same steps to attach your spikes. You're going to score. This time you're just going to score the top of the dragon because the spikes are really thin and they will fall apart if you try to score the bottoms of the spikes. Of course, you're going to add some more slip. And then you're carefully going to arrange the spikes to the top of the dragon. And I trimmed off just enough to make it to the end of the tail. Then with gentle fingers, I'm going to smooth the spikes to the top of the dragon. I have a little left over, so I decided that my dragon needed a little extra horn. Very carefully, I'm going to score the place where the horn is going to go and use a little bit of slip. Okay, the dragon is almost complete. Now we need to do the wings. You're going to take a slab and you're going to cut it diagonally, making two triangular shapes. Stack them one on top of the other. Be careful not to push so that they don't fuse together. Now I'm going to make a looped wing shape by creating little W's all the way around the edges. I'm using my stylus just to draw these at first, and then I'm going to cut out the little U shapes. Notice that I didn't need to cut them out on the long end because that is the end that's going to fuse to the body of the dragon. Now very carefully I'm going to separate the two wings so that they're going to be ready to be attached to the dragon body. I need to make sure that I'm putting the right side of the wings, the same sides, to the front of the dragon. I left a little space between the spikes and scored the edge. I'm going to slip the sides and then very carefully attach the wings. I'm going to gently use my tool to fuse them together. Then I'm going to use my finger to smooth it together. I want my wings to have a little bit of a lift to them instead of flopping downwards, so gently I'm molding the clay in an upwards direction. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. Attaching the wing to the slip, smoothing it with my finger, and using the clay tool for assistance. Then bending the wing upward to match the first wing. So here's the dragon with the wings and all of the body parts attached. And here's the example of the two-headed dragon with the wings and the spikes attached. Here's an example of a dragon that's standing up on two legs.